Hello and welcome to the Form a Day Challenge by clevr. My name is Kareem Cooperhouse, and for 30 days in a row, I am showcasing one form a day that we've automated for a school district. Today is day 3, so I'm showcasing a travel expense reimbursement form. This is a form that we've done many different ways for many different districts. So today I'm showcasing just one way of automating the travel expense reimbursement form. And so what I've done is before I actually show you how we've automated the form, I'm going to just quickly show you, this is a policy that the district has for their expense reimbursement form. And it's quite lengthy. It's got lots of clauses, lots of exceptions. It's literally 12 pages long. So I obviously won't go through all of it. But I wanted to showcase this because I'm assuming that you as a school district also have your own travel policy document. It might not necessarily be 12 pages long, but it certainly has a lot of different clauses and exceptions. What the district had prior to clevr is a manual form like you see over here. An Excel spreadsheet where the employee had to complete this on a monthly basis, put in all their dates for departure and returns, how they, what kind of accommodations they had, whether they stayed in a hotel or they stayed with family and friends. Did they have a rental car? Did they use public transportation? And so on and so forth. And they had an appendix here where from school to school, they had base amounts that had to be used when using your own personal vehicle. They also had a whole chart to determine the kilometers or miles between each school. And then they had another document that explained the sequence and procedures. And you can see that this is really a complex workflow and form. And so we're now in the clevr platform, and I want to showcase how we automated this particular travel expense form. So I'll scroll down to the form and find it over here. And so as an employee, I would only see my name over here. So I'll pick on Ryan. And here we are in the form itself, where I'd be able to determine the school, school year, what month am I asking for a reimbursement. And then I would indicate whether or not this was related to professional development. If yes, then I would have to indicate the professional development form number. And if no, you can see that this disappears. I need to provide a description. And then I can switch over to the expenditures tab. And this is how we manage the real estate of a form. We break it up into different tabs. And then within that tab, there are sub-tabs. You can see here that the two sub-tabs are, did I travel within the district? Meaning, did I travel to the head office or to another school? Versus, did I actually travel outside of the district? Meaning, I went to a professional development seminar or workshop or conference in a different area, in a different city, maybe in a different state. So if I traveled within the district, I then have to determine whether or not I use my personal vehicle. If I did, then a menu appears and I choose my dates. So if I traveled here and I went from this particular school to that particular school, it automatically calculates the distance for me because there is a lookup table in the back end, similar to what you saw over here when I showcased this particular section over here. And then here now I go into whether or not I was carpooling. If yes, then I have to indicate with whom I carpooled with and put their names here. And you'll see that the rate changes whether or not I carpooled. If it's yes, it's $60. If it's no, the rate drops. Now, if I didn't use my personal vehicle, I used a taxi, then I would fill up the information accordingly, upload my receipts. And if it wasn't a taxi, it was public transit. If so, again, the same process. And if instead I rented a vehicle, then I would have to put in that information. At the end, once I'm done, I would sign off on it. Now I'm logged in as a super administrator, so I see both levels of the workflow. Normally the employee would just see this, and of course the supervisor would not see the next section. Then I can switch over to the travel other. And here's where I would indicate, my starting point, my departure dates, my times, and then what kind of transportation was used. Was it a personal vehicle? If so, then I put in my information, whether or not this was a round trip. I can go to Google Maps to check the distances. If it's not personal vehicle, then it's a rental vehicle. And again, I'd put in all this information once again, indicate whether or not I have a receipt. And then if it's other things like, airplane or bus or subway or so on and so forth, I could do that all over again. Finally, there's a section, or not finally, but the next sections are accommodations. So if I stayed with family and friends, I would put that in here. It would calculate the number of days and then provide a flat accommodation amount, which I believe is $50 a day for this district. And then if I stayed in a hotel, then of course I would put in the necessary information and if there's a receipt available and whether or not, and then upload the receipt, and then whether or not I paid with my own personal funds or with a district credit card. So this particular district has credit cards that it has assigned to certain employees. And if they paid using that card, then obviously the district wants to know in order to be able to reconcile and audit its expenses. The next section is the meals. And so based on whether or not, you had breakfasts, lunch, and suppers, I would indicate how many suppers I had. Again, did I pay for them or did I use a district credit card? Do I have receipts available? If so, I have to upload the receipts. Total meal costs, alcoholic beverages. In this particular district, because of their policy, they wanted to break those two out. And then here, the eligible maximum. Again, if we keep going through the form, you can see that there are other areas where there are other expenses that are not covered by these main sections over here, which could be tabulated over here. Of course, all the totals are being calculated, and then at the end, once again, I sign off on it, and it goes to my supervisor. Once it's been approved, it goes to another signature. So you can see that there's a multiple steps here in the workflow. What you don't see in the back end is that there's a workflow that kicks in based on certain amounts. And so if it goes over, for example, $500, then more people need to approve the form as opposed to whether or not it's under $500. As we move over to the next tab, this is a tab that would not be available to the employee. This is the finance department that would be available to access this tab, where they'd be able to look at all their approvals, what actually is eligible for reimbursement, put in some comments, apply some budget codes, again, go through another approval process, and then finalize the expenses. The last tab here is for people to be able to access all the previous expense reports. As they keep adding new expense reports, they're going to show up over here in this list. There's a link here that brings people out to this actual travel reimbursement policy. This is important. People have questions or want clarification on certain areas of the form. As I come back to the form, you'll see that there's an add new entry button. This is where I'd be able to add new reports on an ongoing basis. So this is an example of how we can automate your travel and expense reimbursement form. We have lots of different examples of these forms. If I come back into the system and scroll, you'll see another example over here. As I come through here, you'll have to give me a second here. There's a lot of forms. Coming down to this one over here, and you can see that this is a completely different version of the form. This is a different district. They have much simpler needs. All they have to do is put in their dates and times, calculate their kilometers, whether or not there was carpooling. And again, you can see that their totals are being done. They have flat amounts that they provide for meals. So if I change this to 3, it goes up to $60. If I change this to 1, it goes down to 15, and so on and so forth. And then the total gets updated automatically. So this is a much simpler version. Really, this is the beauty of the clevr platform. Whether you have a simple process or a complicated process, whether your workflow is simple or advanced or multi-tiered, clevr adapts to you as opposed to you having to adapt to the software. If you enjoy what you see, feel free to reach out. We'd love to share some other forms with you. Tune in tomorrow for day 4, where I'll be sharing another form that we've automated using the clevr platform.